2 Samuel chapter 8. After this, David struck the Philistines and subdued them, and David took the bridle of the mother city out of the hand of the Philistines. He defeated Moab and measured them with the line, making them to lie down on the ground, and he measured 2 lines to put to death, and 1 full line to keep alive. The Moabites became servants to David and brought tribute. David also struck Hadadezer, the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, as he went to recover his dominion at the river. David took from him 1,700 horsemen and 20,000 footmen. David hamstrung the chariot horses, but reserved enough of them for 100 chariots. When the Syrians of Damascus came to help Hadadezer, the king of Zobah, David struck 22,000 men of the Syrians. Then David put garrisons in Syria of Damascus, and the Syrians became servants to David and brought tribute. Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. David took the shields of gold that were on the servants of Hadadezer and brought them to Jerusalem. From Betah and Berothai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took a great quantity of bronze. When Toah, king of Hamath, heard that David had struck all the army of Hadadezer, then Toah sent Joram his son to King David to greet him and to bless him, because he had fought against Hadadezer and struck him, for Hadadezer had wars with Toah. Joram brought with him vessels of silver, vessels of gold, and vessels of bronze. King David also dedicated these to Yahweh, with the silver and gold that he dedicated of all the nations which he subdued, of Syria, of Moab, of the children of Ammon, of the Philistines, of Amalek, and of the plunder of Hadadezer, son of Rehob, king of Zobah. David earned a reputation when he returned from striking down 18,000 men of the Syrians in the Valley of Salt. He put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom he put garrisons, and all the Edomites became servants to David. Yahweh gave victory to David wherever he went. David reigned over all Israel, and David executed justice and righteousness for all his people. Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was over the army. Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. Zadok, the son of Ahitub, and Ahimelech, the son of Abiathar, were priests. Seraiah was scribe. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and the Pelethites, and David's sons were chief ministers. 2 Samuel chapter 9. David said, "Is there yet any who is left of Saul's house, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" There was of Saul's house a servant whose name was Ziba, and they called him to David. And the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" He said, "I am your servant." The king said, "Is there not yet any of Saul's house, that I may show the kindness of God to him?" Ziba said to the king, "Jonathan still has a son who is lame in his feet." The king said to him, "Where is he?" Ziba said to the king, "Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar." Then King David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lo-debar. Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, came to David, fell on his face, and showed respect. David said, "Mephibosheth?" He answered, "Behold, your servant." David said to him, "Don't be afraid, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan your father's sake, and will restore to you all the land of Saul your father. You will eat bread at my table continually." He bowed down and said, "What is your servant, that you should look at such a dead dog as I am?" Then King David called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, "All that belonged to Saul and to all his house I have given to your master's son. Till the land for him, you, your sons, and your servants. Bring in the harvest, that your master's son may have bread to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's son, will always eat bread at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, "According to all that my lord the king commands his servant, so your servant will do." So Mephibosheth ate at the king's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah. All who lived in Ziba's house were servants to Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he ate continually at the king's table. He was lame in both his feet. 2 Samuel chapter 10. After this, the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his place. David said, "I will show kindness to Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness to me." So David sent by his servants to comfort him concerning his father. David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. But the princes of the children of Ammon said to Hanun their lord, "Do you think that David honors your father, in that he has sent comforters to you? Hasn't David sent his servants to you to search this city, to spy it out, and to overthrow it?" So Hanun took David's servants, shaved off 1/2 of their beards, and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told David this, he sent to meet them, for the men were greatly ashamed. The king said, "Wait at Jericho until your beards have grown, and then return." When the children of Ammon saw that they had become odious to David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Beth-rehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and the king of Maacah with 1,000 men, and the men of Tob were 12,000 men. When David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the army of the mighty men. The children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entrance of the gate. The Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and the men of Tob and Maacah were by themselves in the field. Now when Joab saw that the battle was set against him before and behind, he chose all of the choice men of Israel to put them in array against the Syrians. The rest of the people he committed into the hand of Abishai his brother, and he put them in array against the children of Ammon. He said, "If the Syrians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the children of Ammon are too strong for you, then I will come and help you. Be courageous, and let's be strong for our people and for the cities of our God, and may Yahweh do what seems good to him." So Joab and the people who were with him came near to the battle against the Syrians, and they fled before him. When the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians had fled, they likewise fled before Abishai and entered into the city. Then Joab returned from the children of Ammon and came to Jerusalem. When the Syrians saw that they were defeated by Israel, they gathered themselves together. Hadadezer sent and brought out of the Syrians who were beyond the river, and they came to Helam, with Shobach, the captain of the army of Hadadezer, at their head. David was told that, and he gathered all Israel together and passed over the Jordan and came to Helam. The Syrians set themselves in array against David and fought with him. The Syrians fled before Israel, and David killed 700 charioteers of the Syrians and 40,000 horsemen, and struck Shobach, the captain of their army, so that he died there. When all the kings who were servants to Hadadezer saw that they were defeated before Israel, they made peace with Israel and served them. So the Syrians were afraid to help the children of Ammon any more. 2 Samuel chapter 11. At the return of the year, at the time when kings go out, David sent Joab and his servants with him, and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David stayed at Jerusalem. At evening David arose from his bed and walked on the roof of the king's house. From the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful to look at. David sent and inquired after the woman. One said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, Uriah the Hittite's wife?" David sent messengers and took her, and she came in to him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she sent and told David and said, "I am with child." David sent to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah had come to him, David asked him how Joab did, and how the people fared, and how the war prospered. David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." Uriah departed out of the king's house, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and didn't go down to his house. When they had told David, saying, "Uriah didn't go down to his house," David said to Uriah, "Haven't you come from a journey? Why didn't you go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark, Israel, and Judah are staying in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open field. Shall I then go into my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife? As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing." David said to Uriah, "Stay here today also, and tomorrow I will let you depart." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day, and the next day, when David had called him, he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. At evening he went out to lie on his bed with the servants of his lord, but didn't go down to his house. In the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. He wrote in the letter saying, "Send Uriah to the forefront of the hottest battle, and retreat from him, that he may be struck and die." When Joab kept watch on the city, he assigned Uriah to the place where he knew the valiant men were. The men of the city went out and fought with Joab. Some of the people fell, even of David's servants, and Uriah the Hittite died also. Then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and he commanded the messenger, saying, "When you have finished telling all the things concerning the war to the king, it shall be that if the king's wrath arise, and he asks you, 'Why did you go so near to the city to fight? Didn't you know that they would shoot from the wall? Who struck Abimelech, the son of Jerubbesheth? Didn't a woman cast an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go so near the wall?' Then you shall say, 'Your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead.'" So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for. The messenger said to David, "The men prevailed against us and came out to us into the field, and we were on them even to the entrance of the gate. The shooters shot at your servants from off the wall, and some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead." Then David said to the messenger, "Tell Joab, don't let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Make your battle stronger against the city and overthrow it. Encourage him." When Uriah's wife heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. When the mourning was past, David sent and took her home to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased Yahweh. 2 Samuel chapter 12. Yahweh sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said to him, "There were 2 men in one city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had very many flocks and herds, But the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb, which he had bought and raised. It grew up together with him and with his children. It ate of his own food, drank of his own cup, and lay in his bosom, and was like a daughter to him. A traveler came to the rich man, and he didn't want to take of his own flock and of his own herd to prepare for the wayfaring man who had come to him, but took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. David's anger burned hot against the man, and he said to Nathan, "As Yahweh lives, the man who has done this deserves to die. He must restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and because he had no pity." Nathan said to David, "You are the man. This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you out of the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your bosom, and gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that would have been too little, I would have added to you many more such things. Why have you despised Yahweh's word, to do that which is evil in his sight? You have struck Uriah the Hittite with the sword, have taken his wife to be your wife, and have slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword will never depart from your house, because you have despised me, and have taken Uriah the Hittite's wife to be your wife. This is what Yahweh says, Behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes, and give them to your neighbor, and he will lie with your wives in the sight of the sun. For you did this secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun." David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against Yahweh." Nathan said to David, "Yahweh has also put away your sin. You will not die. However, because by this deed you have given great occasion to Yahweh's enemies to blaspheme, the child also who is born to you will surely die." Then Nathan departed to his house. Yahweh struck the child that Uriah's wife bore to David, and he was very sick. David therefore begged God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. The elders of his house arose beside him to raise him up from the earth, but he would not, and he didn't eat bread with them. On the 7th day, the child died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, "Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he didn't listen to our voice. How will he then harm himself if we tell him that the child is dead?" But when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David perceived that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, "Is the child dead?" They said, "He is dead." Then David arose from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his clothing. And he came into Yahweh's house and worshipped. Then he came to his own house, and when he requested, they set bread before him, and he ate. Then his servants said to him, "What is this that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child was dead, you rose up and ate bread." He said, "While the child was yet alive, I fasted and wept, for I said, Who knows whether Yahweh will not be gracious to me, that the child may live? But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me." David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in to her and lay with her. She bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. Yahweh loved him, and he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and he named him Jedidiah, for Yahweh's sake. Now Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. Joab sent messengers to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah. Yes, I have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together and encamp against this city and take it, lest I take this city and it be called by my name. David gathered all the people together and went to Rabbah and fought against it and took it. He took the crown of their king from off his head, and its weight was a talent of gold, and in it were precious stones, and it was set on David's head. He brought a great quantity of plunder out of the city. He brought out the people who were in it, and put them to work under saws, under iron picks, under axes of iron, and made them go to the brick kiln. And he did so to all the cities of the children of Ammon. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. 2 Samuel chapter 13. After this, Absalom, the son of David, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. And Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Amnon was so troubled that he became sick because of his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and it seemed hard to Amnon to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very subtle man. He said to him, Why, son of the king, are you so sad from day to day? Won't you tell me? Amnon said to him, I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister. Jonadab said to him, Lay down on your bed and pretend to be sick. When your father comes to see you, tell him, Please let my sister Tamar come and give me bread to eat, and prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat it from her hand. So Amnon lay down and faked being sick. When the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, Please let my sister Tamar come and make me a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, Go now to your brother Amnon's house, and prepare food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. She took dough and kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. She took the pan and poured them out before him. But he refused to eat. Amnon said, Have all men leave me. Then every man went out from him. Amnon said to Tamar, Bring the food into the room, that I may eat from your hand. Tamar took the cakes which she had made, and brought them into the room to Amnon her brother. When she had brought them near to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, Come, lie with me, my sister. She answered him, No, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing ought to be done in Israel. Don't you do this folly. As for me, where would I carry my shame? And as for you, you will be as one of the fools in Israel. Now therefore, please, speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not listen to her voice, but being stronger than she, he forced her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her with exceedingly great hatred, for the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. Amnon said to her, Arise, be gone. She said to him, No, not so. Because of this great wrong, and sending me away is worse than the other that you did to me. But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who ministered to him and said, Now put this woman out from me, and bolt the door after her. She had a garment of various colors on her, for the king's daughters who were virgins dressed in such robes. Then his servant brought her out and bolted the door after her. Tamar put ashes on her head and tore her garment of various colors that was on her, and she laid her hand on her head and went her way, crying aloud as she went. Absalom, her brother, said to her, Has Amnon your brother been with you? But now you hold your peace, my sister. He is your brother. Don't take this thing to heart. So Tamar remained desolate in her brother Absalom's house. But when King David heard of all these things, he was very angry. Absalom spoke to Amnon, neither good nor bad, for Absalom hated Amnon, because he had forced his sister Tamar. After 2 full years, Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal Hazor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. Absalom came to the king and said, "See now, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant." The king said to Absalom, "No, my son, let's not all go, lest we be burdensome to you." He pressed him. However, he would not go, but blessed him. Then Absalom said, "If not, please let my brother Amnon go with us." The king said to him, "Why should he go with you?" But Absalom pressed him, and he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Absalom commanded his servants, saying, "Mark now, when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I tell you, strike Amnon, then kill him. Don't be afraid. Haven't I commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant." The servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and every man got up on his mule and fled. While they were on the way, the news came back to David, saying, "Absalom has slain all the king's sons, and there is not one of them left." Then the king arose and tore his garments, and lay on the earth, and all his servants stood by with their clothes torn. Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, answered, "Don't let my lord suppose that they have killed all the young men, the king's sons, for Amnon only is dead. For by the appointment of Absalom, this has been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar. Now therefore don't let my lord the king take this thing to heart, to think that all the king's sons are dead, for only Amnon is dead." But Absalom fled. The young man who kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming by way of the hillside behind him. Jonadab said to the king, "Behold, the king's sons are coming. It is as your servant said." As soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voices and wept. The king also and all his servants wept bitterly. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihur, king of Geshur. David mourned for his son every day. So Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. King David longed to go out to Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, since he was dead. 2 Samuel chapter 14. Now Joab the son of Zeruiah perceived that the king's heart was toward Absalom. Joab sent to Tekoa and brought a wise woman from there and said to her, "Please, act like a mourner and put on mourning clothing. Please, and don't anoint yourself with oil, but be as a woman who has mourned for a long time for the dead. Go in to the king and speak like this to him." So Joab put the words in her mouth. When the woman of Tekoa spoke to the king, she fell on her face to the ground, showed respect, and said, "Help, O king." The king said to her, "What ails you?" She answered, "Truly, I am a widow, and my husband is dead. Your servant had 2 sons, and they both fought together in the field, and there was no one to part them, but the one struck the other and killed him. Behold, the whole family has risen against your servant, and they say, 'Deliver him who struck his brother, that we may kill him for the life of his brother whom he killed, and so destroy the heir also.' Thus they would quench my coal, which is left, and would leave to my husband neither name nor remainder on the surface of this earth." The king said to the woman, "Go to your house, and I will give a command concerning you." The woman of Tekoa said to the king, "My lord, O king, may the iniquity be on me and on my father's house, and may the king and his throne be guiltless." The king said, "Whoever says anything to you, bring him to me, and he will not bother you any more." Then she said, "Please, let the king remember Yahweh your God, that the avenger of blood destroy not any more, lest they destroy my son." He said, "As Yahweh lives, not one hair of your son shall fall to the earth." Then the woman said, "Please, "Let your servant speak a word to my lord the king." He said, "Say on." The woman said, "Why then have you devised such a thing against the people of God? For in speaking this word, the king is as one who is guilty, in that the king does not bring home again his banished one. For we must die, and are like water spilled on the ground, which can't be gathered up again. Neither does God take away life, but devises means that he who is banished not be an outcast from him. Now therefore, seeing that I have come to speak this word to my lord the king, it is because the people have made me afraid. Your servant said, I will now speak to the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his servant. For the king will hear, to deliver his servant out of the hand of the man who would destroy me and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then your servant said, Please let the word of my lord the king bring rest. For as an angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and bad. May Yahweh your God be with you." Then the king answered the woman, "Please, don't hide anything from me that I ask you." The woman said, "Let my lord the king now speak." The king said, "Is the hand of Joab with you in all this?" The woman answered, "As your soul lives, my lord the king, no one can turn to the right hand or to the left from anything that my lord the king has spoken. For your servant Joab urged me, and he put all these words in the mouth of your servant. Your servant Joab has done this thing to change the face of the matter. My lord is wise, according to the wisdom of an angel of God, to know all things that are in the earth." The king said to Joab, "Behold now, I have granted this thing. Go therefore and bring the young man Absalom back." Joab fell to the ground on his face, showed respect, and blessed the king. Joab said, "Today your servant knows that I have found favor in your sight, my lord, O king, in that the king has performed the request of his servant." So Joab arose and went to Geshur, and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. The king said, "Let him return to his own house, but let him not see my face." So Absalom returned to his own house and didn't see the face of the king. Now in all Israel there was no one to be so much praised as Absalom for his beauty. From the sole of his foot even to the crown of his head, there was no defect in him. When he cut the hair of his head, now it was at every year's end that he cut it, because it was heavy on him. Therefore he cut it. He weighed the hair of his head at 200 shekels, after the king's weight. 3 sons were born to Absalom, and 1 daughter whose name was Tamar. She was a woman with a beautiful face. Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem, and he didn't see the king's face. Then Absalom sent for Joab to send him to the king, but he would not come to him. Then he sent again a 2nd time, but he would not come. Therefore he said to his servants, "Behold, Joab's field is near mine, and he has barley there. Go and set it on fire." So Absalom's servants set the field on fire. Then Joab arose and came to Absalom to his house and said to him, "Why have your servants set my field on fire?" Absalom answered Joab, "Behold, I sent to you, saying, Come here, that I may send you to the king to say, Why have I come from Geshur? It would be better for me to be there still. Now therefore, let me see the king's face, and if there is any iniquity in me, let him kill me." So Joab came to the king and told him, and when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom.